Welcome back, everybody.
Oh, awesome. Already here.
Josh was ready even before we start. So, welcome back, everybody. This is Batch Bros.
Diving in head first.
You what? Do you want to do the intro?
Diving in head first. No, it's all you.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. This is Batch Bros Live. We are recapping, I think it's week 4, part 2 of Bachelor in Paradise. As always, I'm your host, The Han Factor, and I am joined today with my normal trusty co-host, Josh, the Tasty Kebab. Josh, why don't you say hi to everybody?
I might not be too trusty because I guess I'm trying to steal the hosting gig from you. So.
I offered you to do the intro. It was right there for you.
I wasn't prepared.
Okay.
I panicked, froze under pressure.
But
I'm ready to talk.
All right. Well, guys, I think that I'll start out this episode by asking Josh if he's got an umbrella ready because there's going to be tears. Oh my gosh, there were so many people crying on this episode. I felt like if the beach wasn't already filled with water to begin with, they sure, they're going to be in a flood soon. So, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I felt like I didn't really need the umbrella because, I just let all the tears all down into my popcorn. It was the perfect seasoning. So entertaining.
Yeah. The one thing I want to say before we kind of get into the meat of the episode, Josh, is why were the first few words of the episode talking about bird sex? Like, I think those were the very first words that came out of anybody's mouth.
I wrote that down, too. And I was just like, damn, Kendall is intriguing me more and more.
Yeah. So, she seems to understand the concept of a cloaca, which is the bird's reproductive organ, but why did that come up in conversation is my real question.
Very bizarre, but, I'm glad they caught that on camera.
Yep, I was thoroughly intrigued by that. But yeah, so we, beginning of the episode, we finally get a new host because we've been lacking one over the last last episode at least. And it is no other than Titus Burgess, famous from famous from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. That's what I know him from best. I guess he has done some Broadway. Very talented actor, very talented artist, if you will. I like him. He's fun. What do you think about him?
Oh yeah, I basically knew him from the same spot, Kimmy Schmidt, and then I was aware that he was on Broadway and stuff. But no, he was a hell of an entertainer. I wrote this down immediately.
Mm-hmm.
He was just all in on it, and it was great to see. So I'll enjoy our time with him.
I don't think anybody on the beach actually knew who he was. That was my first hot take, is that I'm not entirely sure any of these contestants even know who he really is. They seem genuinely confused on who the host was, to at least some of them. So
he's definitely a lower tier celebrity, I'd say, than either
Lance Bass or David Spade. Sure.
Yeah.
And by lower, he's less known. I wouldn't call him lower tier, but
I mean, I would probably go from C tier celebrities into D tier. He can walk into places and not everybody's going to recognize him.
Sure.
Case in point.
Yeah, I don't think that most of them even knew who he was. But...
So, I mean, he may be compensating for that a little bit by throwing a tight-ass party.
So, I watched this episode for some reason. I had subtitles on, Josh, and tight-ass party, so it was supposed to be a play on words. It was supposed to be, Titus, his name shortened. So for some reason on the subtitles, they decided that tight-ass party would be tit-ass party, T-I-T-A-S-S. I don't know if anybody else was watching this, but I just was very distracted and very confused initially because that was not explained, and I eventually put it together. I was like, oh, they're supposed to be doing a play on his words. It's like a Titus-ass party, but it's a tight-ass party, but that ends up being a tit-ass party, which is a bizarre thing to put on the television.
I mean, it makes sense for Bachelor in Paradise, though.
So that's fair.
It's fine.
So Josh, they did this thing a couple... Well, I think it was last season. So last season, there was a couple that had met on Paradise that wanted to do their wedding on Paradise, and they ended up divorced like not even a couple months later too. But they got married during one of the episodes of last season. They brought everybody down, and they decided that they had enough room at the reception for some of the people, but not all the people. So at the time, they read off names just like they did this time and said, okay, you guys can come to the reception, and then you guys can go hang out on the beach. And it was kind of awkward. It's like, okay, well, you know, some of you are cool enough to hang out with us at our wedding day party, and then some of you are not. So the same thing kind of happened here where, you know, Titus was like, okay, some of you can be VIPs and come to this party, and some of you are going to stay at home. And so, you know, I didn't write down all the VIPs, but they knew what they were doing. They knew how to incite drama. Like I said, the Bachelor producers, they work hard. They have got this down to a T of who they need to invite to this party to cause the most amount of drama.
Yeah, they did. Do you have the list, or do you want me to read it?
Go ahead. Tell me all the people that were there.
So the VIPs we got are Becca, Aaron, Noah and Abigail,
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, Solo, Jasenia and Chris,
Mm-hmm.
Riley, Deandra, James, Thomas, and then Wildcard Demi.
Wildcard Demi. Yep. And, you know, that's fine. I think the people on the beach were having a hell of a time, too. You know, they spent most of the episode, it seemed like, crying while people are at the party, but we'll kind of get into that. So let's.
So before that, I want to just kind of touch on the Demi Kenny situation, because I'm not even gonna like pretend that there's anything going on there at this point, because we start this episode off too after the bird sex. We get a glimpse of Demi and Kenny talking
after the bird sex,
and Demi once again propositions Kenny, and he just flat out rejects her. Like, no, I'm good. Thanks.
Yep. I mean, I think at that point in the episode, and based off what we saw in the last episode, even Josh, I was pretty convinced that Mari was going to be the person that Kenny chooses to spend most of his time with after everything was said and done anyway. So I'm not surprised that he is kind of thwarting Demi's advances at this point. You know, obviously they have a more intense conversation later. It doesn't last too long from what we see on the television, but it's not like Demi is gonna win Kenny's heart, is what it's looking like to me. And it sounds like you more or less feel the same way, given the fact that he keeps kind of pushing back, you know?
Yeah, complete agreement. And I was just like, man, Demi, you gotta stop. Like, this is too far at this point. Like, you can tell that you need to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if he just wanted to fuck you, he would do it at this point. But that's not happening, so you don't even need to make the offer. Like, he's aware.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just...
And also, hold yourself to a higher standard at that point. Don't just be like, well, I'll be this guy's side action, even though he's clearly not interested in me.
I mean, I think I said what I had to say here. It's Demi is clearly not going to win Kenny's heart, and despite attempts, I think it's over. I think he wants to see what happens with Mari. Tia hasn't even been a point of conversation for the last 2 episodes at this point, so I don't think she's getting anywhere in this love trapezoid either. So I think the love trapezoid is no more.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So they get to the tight ass party, Josh, and it seems like they're having a good time initially, and Titus comes in and he's like, I've got a surprise. More women will be joining this party that none of you have met yet, at least in the context of Bachelor in Paradise. And those 4 women were Chelsea, Alea, McKenna, and I don't know who the fuck Alana is, but she was there too. So, who is Alana? Is it Alana or Alana?
I think it's Alana.
Alana. That sounds much better.
I think she's another girl that didn't make it very far on whatever season she was in.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize her, and I mean, she could have and from a season prior to when I really got into it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter. I don't think she had much success when she's on the show.
No,
one way or the other.
I think it said she was on Matt's season of The Bachelor. And
Okay,
you don't
well,
remember that, do you?
Yeah, not in the least.
Okay. She obviously didn't make much of an impression, not that Chris did either, on their respective seasons of The Bachelor/Bachelorette. But yeah, anyway, I'll tell you who does know who Alana is Chris. And as soon as she walks in the door, he is pulling her to the side and they're having a conversation. And
they're making out.
Yeah, and as I'm asking myself repeatedly, it's like, who the hell is this? It's like he is immediately making out with her. And they didn't even really talk, Josh. I mean, I felt like it was like, sit down, we're going to make out at this in this private room. Not so private room, I guess I should say. Because, the Bachelor producers were like, hey, Jasenia, go walk by that door. Right? Like, come on.
I mean, maybe, but also at this point, I feel like it could be just that Jasenia's like, well, the
Where
guy
is
that
he?
I'm supposed to be here with has been talking to this girl for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on?
Oh, but that's gotta feel bad for
either way,
her. So
yeah, it's shitty to walk down the hallway and see the guy you're supposed to be dating making out with another woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so but I mean, the remaining part of this party just turns into an absolute shitstorm. It's just Chris, Jasenia, and Alana the entire time. It's their show. Nobody else may as well be there, right? Like,
yeah, honestly, like nothing else notable was really happening.
Mm-hmm.
There's all this concern back at the beach that the men would be breaking off and finding other women.
Yeah,
Marissa
kind of has a mini breakdown.
Only Chris.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Marissa's freaking out. Tammy's freaking out.
I know. I wrote down at this point too. I said, why is Marissa crying? I guess it's just got to be a high stress environment. I got to think to be in.
Yeah, I remember she asked at one point, or said something along the lines like, "Oh, well, this is why I don't date."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Oh, come on, you got to have a little more self-confidence and security there, and also trust for Riley at this point."
I think so. Josh, Deandra said something this episode that I felt like was very true, where she said something along the lines of, well, if it only takes one party for your quote-unquote man to not be your man anymore, then they probably were never your man to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, truth. If your significant other, if it only takes like a couple minutes away from you to be, not 100% true to you, then yeah, they were probably never yours to begin with.
Yeah, you were gonna get hurt at some point, so
yeah.
Might as well just let it happen now.
Rip the Band-Aid off now. And I mean, Jasenia got the brunt of it too, because whoever this random singer they brought in, listen to their...
She wasn't bad.
She wasn't bad, no. I wish she had dated one of the male contestants, just like a few seasons ago. Where that would have been...
Also Chris's ex.
Yeah, also Chris's ex. But yeah, I mean, he gave zero shits. They're literally on that dance floor making out in front of everybody while Jasenia is literally on the sidelines. So...
Yeah, that was incredibly uncomfortable to watch.
Oh, cringy.
Oh, man. Just okay, even if you're into this girl, you're gonna have time to, see her more on your own later. But...
Yeah.
Right now, and the one conversation that Chris and Jasenia try to have after Jasenia catches him making out with her, it's cut off short because Alana is already trying to steal him back.
Yeah, it didn't last long.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I think there certainly should have probably been a little bit more closure between Chris and Jasenia before he ran off and just made out with Alana, and then especially on the dance floor in front of everybody, that took it to a whole new level where I was like, oh god, this is bad. This is hard to watch. I don't really want to see this anymore. So I get that you're having a good time, but come on, at least tell Jasenia, hey, Like it's you're gonna have more private time than that, right? Like even on the beach, surrounded by cameras, I feel like you're gonna have moments that are more secluded than what, like literally there.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is literally a party where everybody is on top of each other. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just like you're out on the beach, kind of off to the side and making out. They're just like
Yeah.
in the middle of the dance floor. So yeah, everybody's gonna see it, and everybody already knew too coming in that Jasenia and Chris were very much together.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? So I thought it was kind of, you know, what Chris did to Jasenia, oh my gosh, to Jasenia is quite fucked up, quite honestly. Like, it was pretty messed up what we witnessed on the television. But her and him kind of had a little bit of a pre-existing relationship too, it sounds like, right? Like, he isn't somebody that she didn't know. Like, this isn't some stranger that she met on the beach. Like, she was
Yeah.
hoping he would be there, and it was kind of, you know, she was kind of with Ivan and then said, hey, like, she handled it infinitely better than how Chris handled it with her. Like, I do not want to minimalize what we witnessed on the television because, like I said, I feel like Chris did her wrong. And, like, especially, like, clearly doesn't care about her at all if he's going to make out with this random chick in front of her on a dance floor surrounded by all these people. So, it's...
Yeah, and I mean, you know, with Ivan and Jasenia too, like we've at least seen them like hanging out around each other, so things aren't so like awkward or uncomfortable with them. Like it's not negative to the point where they can't be amicable.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly here, as we see, things kind of go nuclear, and there's
Oh,
just
absolutely.
no way that they're gonna be around each other.
Yeah. And Jasenia does anything that any reasonable person would do and said, fuck this, I'm leaving. I'm going home. Get me out of this party. I
Yeah,
don't want to be here anymore.
And good for her. She shouldn't have to just sit there and subject herself to that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but that was a tight-ass party, to put it lightly. Yeah, I mean, it was not something that I really enjoyed watching, really. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Right.
It's like a train wreck, right? Like, you don't want to look away, but at the same time, it's hard to watch. So I remember let's talk about the other women at the party real quick, because two of them were there that we didn't really see much of, and maybe they'll come down later, maybe not. I can't imagine they flew them to Mexico to not put them on the beach at some point, right, Josh? Like, they're gonna be down there. It's just a matter of when.
Right.
So we saw McKenna from Peter season, the one that always kind of made the weird tongue motions a lot of times.
McKenna.
Yeah,
She
McKenna.
got into the fight with Tammy.
Yep. Well, I think she probably would have gotten in a fight with her. Well, I mean, Tammy tries to fight everyone. It's starting to look like too. But anyway, yeah. So we've got McKenna and we've got Alea. Alea was also on Peter's season. Had a really good connection.
Also problematic.
Also, yeah, had a really good connection with Peter, and all the girls didn't like her, and she essentially went home, and then came back, and then went home again. It didn't last long. So she was there, she was gone, she came back, and she left again. And then we got Chelsea, the runway model from Matt's season, and that was it. And then we already kind of talked about Alana. What are your thoughts on those three women from what you've seen in previous shows, and what you're about to see a little bit more of Chelsea, of course, foreshadowing?
I mean, Chelsea is very easily my favorite of the bunch. But it doesn't say much about her.
Okay. It's not that you were, like, fawning over Chelsea.
Yeah.
It's just that you were not very impressed with what you had seen out of McKenna and Alea in their previous seasons of The Bachelor.
Yeah, and I'll say with Chelsea overall, it's probably a little lukewarm, honestly, because there were times where I was like, okay, yeah, she seems really nice and cool, and there's other times where I'm like, I'm not sure I'm a fan.
Mm-hmm.
So
She's kind of hot and cold for you.
we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what we get out of her here. Now that we're probably gonna see more of her personality, then she was into Matt, but I don't think she ever really got that much attention, if I can remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So for the most part was there. She went decently far, but yeah, just not not huge on the season.
Okay. Not somebody that you're, like, totally in love with, but not somebody that,
No,
like...
I wasn't like dying to see her get another chance or anything.
Okay.
Just like, okay, she's here. I know her. Like, let's get to know her better. Like,
Hmm.
I don't want to pass all my judgment on her already. Like, I may be more willing to deal with the other women.
Yep. So, and that's kind of all that I have to say about the party, Josh, personally. I don't know if there's anything that you have to add about what we witnessed prior to moving on.
Of course, I need to bring up my Tammy.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
So
more of the stuff off the beach during the party.
Yeah, I believe Tammy had a conversation with Thomas going to the party, being like, hey, I understand you're going alone. Don't feel obligated to not do anything. Like, I want you to make your own decisions. And, like, basically, if you want to be with me, prove it. But if you don't want to be with me, like, go ahead, show yourself.
Yeah.
That's what she verbalized to him, but then, like, very clearly, emotionally later on, she was not doing so hot with her decision and felt like she may have ruined things, which we'll see later on. But
I think she does.
Yeah, just I wrote down the note, Tammy and Tommy, destined for disaster.
Oh, that's true. I think that it's the same type of situation where it's, if you have something good, sometimes you have to commit to it. And if you don't have a willingness to commit to it, they're both trying to be understanding, like, hey, I want to be, I don't want you to feel obligated to dating me and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, it's like, you can't always have your cake and eat it too, right? Like, if you want to commit to it, then you should tell the person, it's like, hey, I want to commit to you and I hope you feel the same way. I think that's more the conversation that needed to be said, where it's like, I like you a lot. I'm committed to you. I hope that you feel the same way about me and are willing to commit to me. And I need to know if you are getting there, if you're there yet. Like, have the conversation that way more so than just say, hey, like, don't feel obligated to come back to me because I'm not obligated to come back to you. That's kind of what I gather from that, right? Like, it's kind of like,
yeah,
well...
I completely agree with you on that point. I think they mentioned they've only been together for a few days, so maybe the timeline is a lot more compressed than I was thinking.
Well,
last episode.
Marissa mentions that she has known Riley for 5 days when she's crying over him. So, Thomas came onto the beach before Riley, right? Yeah, he was there beforehand. And...
yeah.
It was maybe the same episode,
I thought they said that they made out for the first time 2 days ago, Tammy and Thomas.
Okay, but...
So that's, like, really fast.
Yeah, they have not known each other for more than a week's time, I would think. Like, a 7-day total, they probably have not known each other in the context of the show. I doubt that they knew each other beforehand, too. It didn't sound like it, at least. So, but, yeah. So, we get back from the party, right? And it's just kind of like, we get a pretty quick transition. I don't think that there's really a whole lot of more fallout from the party at that moment, because Jasenia leaves early. She's pretty much telling everybody that her and Chris are done. She's so upset about what she witnessed, and like I said, I don't blame her. It would be upsetting. And so she feels hurt. She feels betrayed. She goes and apparently sleeps in a room by herself, just wants to be alone to kind of process her feelings. And it was kind of cute.
By herself with a camera.
By herself with a camera. And then it's kind of cute the next day, right? Like the next morning, and we kind of move back over to the trapezoid that we mentioned earlier with Kenny, Mari, Demi, and Tia. And Josh, before we talk about this even, I want to say Tia is out of the picture, right? Like, she's just not there anymore. She went on a date with Kenny. It was fun. They have no romantic feelings and no chance of pursuing a relationship with each other, right?
Yeah, it certainly seemed that way, because it's just like, well, damn, they went on this date and we don't even get to see them talk ever again. So, yeah, because here we are, Mari, like, airs it all for Kenny, just being like, hey, here's the deal. I really screwed up and I feel awful about it, but I want to leave this beach with you. Yep,
I wrote that down too. They both say to each other, Josh, I would leave today with you.
Yeah.
It's done. They found, like, I don't know how Demi comes back from that in a relationship with Kenny at this point, right? Like, that's pretty much just like, I picked you, you've picked me, let's be exclusive with each other and see where this goes. Because Kenny says things too where he's like, there's just something about you that I keep coming back to, right? Like, I want to be with you and no one else. And that was his stance to begin with. From the moment they met, he was committed to her up until the point where she kind of wavered a little bit.
Wanted to explore options.
Yeah, And so, what are your thoughts as a whole on the Mari and Kenny conversation? Do you like them as a couple? Do you think that they'll last the test of time at this point, Josh? Those are the kind of the questions that I have.
Yeah. So, I guess there's like one moment where it sounded like Kenny was a little apprehensive, but then was all of a sudden just all the way in the pool. So, like, I guess whatever apprehensions he had, it's easy for him to get rid of them.
Well, go ahead.
I think they have decent prospects. Yeah, like I definitely think they're gonna make it through the rest of the show together. And I mean, if Kenny is as interested in her as he's showing himself to be, like willing to ignore other beautiful women in front of him, like I think they would work, because like I really only see some issue coming through with like Ari being insecure about Kenny talking to other women. But he's kind of proving himself to a degree that he's gonna be faithful and like stick around with her.
Yeah, so Josh, the one part of their conversation that I really liked was when Kenny said, well, when I had the rose, you were 100% committed to me, and then when you had the rose, it was kind of like, well, I'm interested in exploring other options, and then I have the rose again, and now you want to commit to me 100%. And she's like, oh, thank you for bringing that up. I can see how your perspective would be on that, but I want you to know that that's not the case, and that I am very committed to our relationship now. And
I think that's what prompts them saying that they'd be willing to leave the beach, like, with each other that day if they had to.
I think that was a good thing to tell them, because I think that's a mental block for a lot of these contestants trying to find love, I feel like, right now, is the strong... they talk about it a lot. It's a power dynamic, which is unhealthy in a relationship to begin with, right? Because,
right.
like, I think that it really is a real thing that they're experiencing, where it's like, one person is always here in the relationship, and the other person is right here, and you probably can't see me yet, but I've got one hand over the other. And they have, it breeds insecurity, really, is what I'm kind of witnessing, where it's like, okay, well, I need them to like me, because what's important, they get lost in the shuffle, and they forget it's like, no, I'm here to try to find somebody that I might have, like, a chance of dating for long term or falling in love with, and yada yada yada. But they kind of get stuck in this power dynamic of like, oh, I need the rose and I need it now.
Yeah, and so like game theory wise, that makes sense that you're gonna be more open while you have more time to find somebody. Like, yes, I'm guaranteed to go through, so let's like scout and then try to find somebody that I will be able to link to when I am more vulnerable. So, like, that totally makes sense, but as you said, not a great dynamic to build a relationship in.
No.
Because you're not having that same level of trust, and, like, it's easy to also see yourself doing something and then think, well, what's stopping that other person from doing the exact same thing?
Oh, no, I mean, I agree. It's just... It's hard to watch these people kind of get lost in the shuffle. Like, I wonder if this conversation ever would have happened with Mari and Kenny in the first place if it wasn't in this type of environment, right? Like, I think that they'd probably just date and be fine, right? And I think, I will go ahead and say that I think that Kenny's has exhibited a decent amount of maturity across these episodes that I've seen too. Despite what Demi says about him later. I think that he's having hard conversations, he's keeping his calm, he's telling people how he feels for the most part, right? He's not, like, staying guarded or, like, holding his feelings in to cause miscommunications. And he said things in the past too, where it was like, "Hey, I have been in a position before where I've had something good and that we weren't willing to commit to, and then the next thing you know, it's gone." And that kind of happened with Mari, and I'm glad it didn't ruin the relationship because I think that they honestly have the best shot of the three women we've seen Kenny with of making
Oh,
it the distance.
100%.
Oh yeah, so I'm glad that it looks like it's gonna be Kenny and Mari in the end because then true love wins. You know, to be cheesy, if you
Yeah,
will.
and no, I've really grown to like Kenny
Mhm.
over this season. I wasn't so sure about him coming in.
Yep.
He seemed, a bit like a tool, which he may very well be still, but
Yeah.
he's at least a guy that has some values and can be respectable. Like
Yeah. How many star
he
tattoos do you
seems
think
like
he has on his
a nice
body?
enough guy here.
Side note. How many star tattoos do you think he has on his body?
Mm,
And
I would guess like 8 or 9.
so does he really like star? Is there a backstory to that, or does he just really like stars?
It's
You
just
know?
a common tattoo. Well, I guess
No, I know,
on his
but
chest he kind of has a whole like slew of them together.
I know
So
that's why I'm
I'd say I
asking. It's
probably
like,
went low.
yeah, what do I not
Yeah.
know about this guy? Because it's like he, the only tattoos he has are stars. He's even got some behind his ear. So,
He's just trying to be a star.
that would be super cheesy. I hope that at least it would be better. It would be better to me if he was just like, oh, I just like him, you know, rather than.
It's the whole manifest your goals philosophy.
Oh, you're right. If you think it, if
I
you
just
dream
surround
it, it'll
myself
become
with
reality.
stars.
Yep.
Yeah.
I.
You can dream it, you can do it.
Oh my gosh, so cheesy, Josh. All right. So, Josh, talk me through the Demi Kenny conversation because that's what we get to see on our screen next.
um, yeah, honestly, I don't really know what to say. Like, I had so many problems with all the things that Demi was saying, as she was basically she's playing a zero-sum game here, right?
Yep.
She had to tear down everything
Mari.
about Mari to build herself up.
Yeah, I didn't like
And
that either.
Penny's even like trying to acknowledge her positive qualities, saying that,
Mm-hmm.
oh well, I actually had more fun with you than I expected to have. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think that we would be that compatible or have that good of a time.
Yeah, I think
And
that what Demi
and
said.
Demi just doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah, what Demi said can be summed up with "She sucks, pick me." You know, she pretty much was like, "She is all these horrible things. How could you like her more than me? I'm so much better than her." Yada yada yada. And it's a zero sum game, like you said. She needs to focus on her relationship with Kenny rather than focusing on his relationship with her, because it seems like in Demi's mind this is more of a competition rather than trying to build a relationship with Kenny.
Yeah, and even like as the competition, it's like, well, I may not be able to get so high, but I'm gonna make sure I step on everybody else on my way there.
Yeah,
Make sure that they're kicked down below me. Like, there's just no need for it.
yeah,
Like,
I
come on,
I didn't
Demi.
like it. It just I need to tear somebody else down in order to try to get ahead is kind of what my interpretation of that conversation was. And I thought Kenny handled it well. You know, it's not like he was like, "Oh, I know she sucks," but yeah, it's like it's not like he said anything bad about Mari. And I thought it was unfair of Demi to say that Kenny was the most immature like
Oh,
40-year-old.
absolutely.
I thought he handled that really well. I don't think that was deserved in the slightest. So,
No, like, he didn't give in to what Demi was saying to be like,
mhm,
yeah, well, she sucks, but I'm just gonna go with it anyway.
yep.
And he also, like, he didn't turn it around onto Demi to be like, oh, well, actually, you suck. Um,
Yeah, it's
and
not.
I
He
like
didn't tear
her.
her down at
So
all.
he's just saying, hey, like, right now, I have a stronger connection with her. We have a better relationship, so that's the way I'm gonna go. It's not that I didn't have a good relationship and a good time with you.
Hmm.
It's just that right now things are better, and that's the decision I'm making. And yeah, I don't think Demi heard any of that. I think all she heard was, um, like, you're awful. Every little insecurity Demi has.
Comes boiling right
Uh,
up.
yeah, like Kenny was like throwing those things at her in her mind, and yeah, just not at all what he is saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just kind of said at the end, I was like, Demi, take your loss and move on. Right? Like,
Yeah,
this
and then
relationship's over.
once again, Tammy or not Tammy, Demi threatens arson.
She's like, oh, I'm just gonna burn this place down. So
Burn down the beach.
I wonder who Demi is going to pursue next. Like, certainly she's gonna go after somebody, right?
Yeah, and so I guess I wrote this down a little bit later. I'm not sure that anything really. Well, we kind of get some stuff. I was like trying to figure out whose rose is still really up in the air.
Yeah, there's definitely
So if
some.
you want to table that for a little bit later, as we get these next few women introduced to the beach.
Sure, we can kind of talk about that like towards the end of the episode. It's like who really has a rose that's up in the air here, and how is this gonna play out?
We hit a certain point after all the one-on-ones where I'm like, okay, assuming all these go as expected, there's really only a couple guys that are still uncertain.
Yeah, and I've lost track at this point of like what the like numbers are here. Like how many guys versus girls are there on the beach?
I have no idea the numbers anymore. I just know that I tried to come up with a list of the people that I could think of that I didn't know.
Yeah,
what they're gonna do.
That's good. We'll just start you with your list here in a bit, but yeah, so that's kind of the Demi, Mari, Kenny situation, right? Like, there's really not a whole lot else to it at this point. It's like Kenny's picking Mari. Tia has never been in the picture really, outside of the one date he went on, and we've got Demi, who is going to have to go her own way. So we'll see what happens, right?
Yep. Seems like it's pretty clear though. Mari and Kenny are locked in. Barring anything crazy happening.
Yeah. So, next person on the beach at this point, Josh, you know who it's gonna be, right? Like it's no coincidence that there was all sorts of drama at the tight ass party. So let's bring it to the beach. Bring down Alana. Alana hits the beach. She gets her date card. And much like a Brendan and Piper situation, she only has eyes for Chris and asks him on a date. But before he says yes, he at least talks to her about it. So,
Yeah, because I think he can tell how uncomfortable everybody is going to be with it.
Oh.
After what happened, to just be like, oh, well, clearly she is just here for me then.
Yep. Well, I mean, at least he has
Not even pretending.
He has a little bit more self-awareness, I feel like, than Brendan does. But trust me, this episode is not going to end without a discussion about Piper and Brendan again. But
yeah, and I wrote down a little note here, being like, "Oh, don't be distracted by all this bullshit with."
I know.
Chris and Alana.
I was like, don't let them off the hook.
Are trash.
Yeah, I know. Don't let them off the hook. That is what I wrote down, and thank God it comes back to that at the end of the episode. But I was big mad for a while. So, cause
yeah, with the way the beach rallied around Jasenia here, I'm like, okay, we better do something for Natasha.
I know.
This is not okay.
Yeah. So he goes and talks to Alana. He says he's excited and he wants to go on the date with her. And he says, yeah, let's do it. Let's go on the date. And there isn't a whole lot else to it other than he comes back into the villa and he announces it to the world. I don't care who knows. I'm going on this date with Alana. Yada, yada, yada. I'm following my heart. Fuck you guys.
Oh,
bye. I was like, who needs to hear that? I don't think I think that they said this too, where it's like, we don't care. Like, the only person
nobody else would have a problem with you going on this date. It's the fact that you were so shitty to Jasenia this entire process.
Yeah. And so before he leaves for the date, Josh, let's talk about this speech for a minute. Like, is it the cheesiest thing that you've seen this season on the beach? Seriously.
That's a good question.
The most unnecessary thing that you've seen. I've seen a lot of unnecessary things this season, but that was certainly one of them.
that was maybe something where I was like looking around the room, pretending I'm there, just to like see everybody else's faces, to be like, do you find this as like ridiculous as I do?
I think
But
everybody did.
yeah, there were a lot of things, and yeah, obviously with everyone's reaction, like no one felt like they needed to hear it. Just like, what are you doing, dude? Like the
Yeah.
one thing that you should be doing, you're not doing.
What,
And
talking
yeah,
to
it's just another
Jasenia?
smack in the face to Jasenia. Yeah,
Yep. Well, he attempts to talk to her before he leaves for the date, and it is the
maybe.
yeah. I mean
He shows up acting like he's going to,
it's
but also is kind of very hesitant to actually do it.
it's the quickest conversation I've ever seen. He walks up and says, "Can I talk to you?" And she goes, "What do we have to talk about?" She goes, "We're done." Like at that point, it's like we're over. I don't really have anything to tell you. You've picked. Goodbye.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, it
thought
had to have
maybe that
lasted maybe
he
a
was
minute.
looking to have a little more of a conversation, maybe like continue talking, and Jasenia would be open to a little bit of something. But Alana like shows up right then and there, basically. It's like, okay, let's go.
Yep. I
Whew.
mean, so they leave for their date, and we can talk about Chris and Alana's date, which admittedly was not very interesting to watch. Um, Alana and Chris get to go
Yeah,
zip
I
lining.
honestly like I was sitting there like, do I even want to watch this?
I
Had it
know.
on DVR, and I'm like, do I just skip the date? Like,
It wasn't
this is just
interesting.
gonna be gross.
Yeah, so, I mean, the conversations. So, I mean, who cares about the zip lining? Whatever. They did something fun, yada, yada, yada. The conversations that they aired them showing were all very awkward. It's like, oh, do you think you're going to get a rose from me this week? That, like, it. I think he
Yeah.
thinks that that's, like, playful, flirty, cute, whatever you want to call it, but it was just kind of. It was just kind of cringy. And then like, oh, well, let's sit on this bench and make out. Oh, let me coach you on how to do it, because we keep getting into weird, awkward positions and all that stuff. I mean, this is where I wrote down for the first time, Josh. I said, I really hope they don't let Brendan and Piper off the hook, because they do a lot of cutscenes to Riley, Jasenia, and Joe talking, and Joe is big
Hmm.
mad about the whole situation because he's like, you don't bring sand to the beach. And he's like, they were already in a relationship, it seems like, beforehand. Like, this is very played out. Like, what the hell? And what we witnessed him do to Jasenia was all sorts of messed up, and I'm upset about it as her friend and all this stuff. So,
Yeah, and that's also where I was like wondering, okay, what else was going on that we didn't see with the
mm-hmm.
whole Brendan, Piper, Natasha triangle?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, very clearly there was some murmur of them before Piper got to the beach, but then once she showed up, nobody really said anything. So I don't know how much Natasha was like downplaying how upset she was. Although, again, she has some very clear moments where she's just like straight up telling the camera this is bullshit.
Oh yeah, I think Natasha is in a worse and more precarious. Here's the difference between Chris and Alana and Brendan and Piper is that Brendan and Piper both have a lot of people on that beach that they had a very strong pre-existing friendship with. So even though what they're doing
Hmm.
is completely fucked up, it's harder for those people to call them out on it because they are more loyal to them than anybody ever would be to Chris and Alana. Because none of those people really know Chris or Alana, is what it sounds like, right? Like they didn't
Yeah,
really.
yeah, they were early dismissals, so like
Yeah.
they've gotten a little bit of fame through their 15 minutes of fame,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's part of the reason why Brendan and Piper were a little bit more off the hook at the time being. For the time being, is that there are like you see Piper hanging out a lot. I saw, at least I noticed, I saw Piper was hanging out a lot with Serena P. And that puts Joe in more of a precarious situation because he and Natasha, I think, are good friends outside of this too. So
Hmm.
it's like, well, my girlfriend is friends with this girl, even though what she and her current boyfriend are doing is kind of messed up. But I'm also friends with this girl who her current boyfriend kind of fucked over. So it's an interesting dynamic, and like I said, I think that it's just, um, I think it's easier for these people to be, I'll say, mean to Chris and Alana because they don't know them as well.
Sure.
But
Sure. I mean, yeah, it's gonna make things a lot less uncomfortable on the whole to like force isolation on them than it is with Brendan and Piper.
Yep.
My proposition was that Chris and Alana should fight Brendan and Piper to the death. See who gets to remain.
That's how we handle eliminations on the show now.
No, I went a little bit Survivor last week. We're gonna go to Hunger Games this week.
Well, even it was funny you said that too, because it's like, can we just vote Brendan and Piper off the island? And Jasenia says literally the same thing about Chris and Alana later. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I did. I did notice that.
I was like, you guys are the same. You're on the same wavelength there. So, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about their date. It sucked. I didn't really enjoy any of their conversation. I didn't see anything meaningful out of it. So, move on.
So, I guess as we say goodbye to Chris and Jasenia as a couple, I wanted to go back and look at our confidence intervals.
Go ahead.
Relationship. And I believe I was a little more confident than you were, but only slightly.
I'm looking for
if I
it.
can find my page. I swear I just had it. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, I put down a 6 and you put down a 5, I believe.
Jasenia and Chris, I put down a 5, you put down a 6. So,
yeah.
Not super confident. They had an average of 5.5, which landed them solidly in the middle of that episode, but there are a lot of couples that we don't really have a whole lot of faith in. So, and a lot of those couples have since disbanded too.
Yeah,
but
so we're gonna see what happens here.
Yeah.
With everyone else, but this is dead.
Yeah.
Dead in the water.
Very, very done. Excuse me.
I do want to call out Aaron here.
Mm-hmm.
Before this too, I think in like his perspective on the situation, he kind of gets worked up, and I was like, wow, Aaron actually seems like he's a really loyal friend. He may have other shortcomings, but I feel like if you're a friend of his, he's going to be ride or die with you.
Oh yeah, I think I would never say that Aaron's not loyal, but at the same time, he's like, I've been on some gang shit with Jasenia, so Team Jasenia all the way. Fuck Chris. I just think that it's just like he's always mob mentality. He's like, let me get my friends and tell everybody else that we need to dislike Thomas or we need to dislike Chris or whatever. It's like, dude, give it up and focus on yourself sometimes, It's just, you're spending, like I said, Thomas lives so rent-free in Aaron's head, it's ridiculous. But, yeah, speaking of Aaron, we get a new person on the beach while Chris and Alana are on their date. We get the runway model herself, Chelsea. She hits the beach, and she has a quick conversation with Thomas, and then she has a quick conversation with Aaron, and then ultimately decides to take Aaron on the beach because I think it's probably because he's the most available, right? Because I think that Chelsea probably is more attracted to Thomas based off what Abigail said and everything, but ultimately went with the guy that seemed more available and open to a relationship.
Sure, and at this point we know a bunch of women are already there, and you're adding more.
Yep.
Like, play your odds.
Yep. So Chelsea and Aaron, they end up going horseback riding on the beach, and they get to sit down and have a picnic. And tell me just kind of what your general thoughts are on them as a potential couple, and whether you liked this date, whether you hated it. Just kind of where are you at, Josh?
It wasn't bad. We got to see a little bit of it. There wasn't anything really that super stuck out in my mind. Nothing serious anyway. What were your thoughts?
It was very meh. I did not have any sort of strong feelings about them. I don't really see them as a couple. I don't really know her as the problem, so it's difficult for me to kind of make... And I mean, I don't know any of them, to be fair, but I don't know anything of what her personality's like or really much about her character. So to say that she's gonna vibe with Aaron is difficult for me, but at the same time, like, they just didn't seem like they had a lot of chemistry in the limited date that they showed, right? Like,
To me, yeah, they didn't show much, but they seemed fine.
mhm.
Like, I would imagine that Chelsea will probably get his rose this week
At this point,
or
yes, I
next
think
week.
that's
Yeah,
probably
like
true.
I don't think it's going anywhere else.
Yeah.
So, like, we'll see with the little bit of time we get at the cocktail party going to the rose ceremony
Mhm.
in the next episode if we see more chemistry promise there, but probably not going to have a whole lot put into my confidence interval on that.
No, probably not. So they
I did have one thing that I wanted to call out.
Okay.
That, as I said, is not as serious. Aaron pulled out this line to Chelsea and was like, "I kiss with my eyes closed. Do you?"
Yeah.
No, I wanted your rating. I wanted your thoughts.
So I think that's in reference to the fact that Matt James always would kiss with his eyes open, right? Like a psychopath. And so, like, that's like, I feel like it's probably in their contract that they have to kiss each other on any one-on-one date, despite how, like, little you want to do it. Like, I think that's probably buried deep down in the Bachelor contract, because I've seen so many dates where it's like, there's no chemistry at all. Like, why are these people kissing? And but that line was going to land 10 times out of 10, right? And unless she's heard it before, it's going to land, I feel like. I feel like that's cute, that's funny, it's probably going to work, right? I think when two beautiful people say, "Hey, you're pretty, let's kiss," it probably isn't that hard to make something happen, right? Like, you don't have to be particularly witty or charming. You just you look good. So.
Well, and that's kind of more
pretty privileged.
the viewpoint I took on it, where I'm like, I don't think that's a very good line. I think that's only working if the person was already looking to kiss you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that I'm going to be pulling that one out anytime soon.
Yeah, there's too much pretty privilege on The Bachelor. So, but anyway, I don't really have anything else to say on their date, but while they're gone, we get another date card that Tia gets to read out loud, and it goes to none other than Becca, the former Bachelorette herself. So
we get confirmation that Tia is actually still there
on the beach. Yeah, right. Tia is present, and so tell me, Josh, who did you think she was gonna pick? So, Aaron's not there. I think she probably picks Aaron, honestly,
so maybe,
if he's on the beach
this
still.
Is where we have our discussion of guys that are still, like, up in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we have Ivan and James, right? Because we haven't really seen anything with Ivan and Deandra at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, theoretically, they could still have something, but the fact that I haven't seen an ounce of them together.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there.
Makes my confidence very low on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then James, who survived last time with Marius Rose, was clearly not looking to get one from him again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, there's those two. I would suspect that Becca would be more of a match with Ivan than she would be with James. So that was kind of where I was leaning.
Yeah.
But yeah, she it's a little ballsy and goes with a risk and wants to talk to Thomas.
Yeah, poor her. Yeah, so Becca gets the date card and immediately pulls Tammy, interestingly, and has a conversation with her because her intentions are, hey, I want to take Thomas on this date. We had a good conversation at the tight-ass party, or tit-ass party, I guess, pick your poison. And she's like, hey, what would you think if I took him? And I thought that conversation was weird. That's kind of what I'll say. It was just kind of weird.
I mean, it's definitely a weird conversation. station, but I thought it was a pretty classy move from Becca to actually go and talk to Tammy before.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it didn't really matter what she was going to say, and she's still gonna make the move, but at least she gave her the heads up. It was just
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, here's what's happening, and kind of gives maybe Tammy the opportunity to talk to Thomas first about it. I don't think she did she?
Before she talked to Thomas, I think the first person she talked to was Tammy. I didn't think there was really anything
No,
else.
I meant after um Becca and Tammy talk. Tammy didn't go and talk with Thomas, right? It was
Oh,
just straight into Becca asking out Thomas, right?
not that they showed on television. I don't think. From what I remember, it was Becca talks to Tammy. Tammy's just like, I don't want him to feel obligated to date me, and you and I are gonna be cool, so you guys go on this date. And Becca's like, hey, I had a good time talking to you. Why don't we go on a date? And he says yes. I mean, almost immediately. He's like, yeah, I'm down. So we get Thomas and Becca on a date, which was unexpected from me at least.
You're missing one of the most important things, though.
Oh, go ahead. What am I missing?
We found out from Wells that he is a generous lover. And if
What?
Becca and Tammy were going off together, maybe Thomas and Wells could have had something.
I don't know what you're referring to. What part of the episode did I miss?
Oh, I think it's at the bar when Becca walks up to Tammy to ask to talk to her.
Mm.
Wells makes a comment about how he's a very generous lover.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Oh, I loved it.
Well, anyway, Thomas agrees to go on the date with Becca, and Tammy is immediately crying again. She's sobbing, not well, not okay. And it's just kind of a cutaway to Thomas and Becca's date. So they get to do dinner with the mariachi band. Seems like a good date to me. The one thing I wrote down here is it's like, I don't know if this is intentional, Josh, or not, but it's almost like Thomas is saying, Aaron, anything you want, I can have. Right? Like, Aaron wants Tammy, Thomas takes Tammy. Aaron wants Becca, Thomas takes Becca. Right? Like, I know that, I don't think it was necessarily that calculated, but, I mean, it sure does seem that way. Just, like, from a very, like, if I'm looking peripherally at the whole situation. But it's hard to see.
Yeah. I didn't really care for Aaron on this whole rant of his.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, man, Aaron's being so bitchy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't feel bad that he said he didn't have sympathy for Tammy. Like, I think that, like I said, Aaron as a character on the show is not somebody that I like really care to see much of. Like, he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have any strong feelings either way at this point. I'm definitely not begging for more Aaron on the screen. But I don't necessarily feel bad for him, or I don't necessarily feel bad for Tammy either. I think it's just kind of like what goes around comes around to a certain extent. So
I mean, yeah, yes and no.
you love Tammy too much. You're
Maybe
too
I'm
biased.
being biased. But like, I feel like this is gonna feel shitty regardless. Yeah, you reap what you sow. How much was Thomas ever really into her? I don't know that it was that much, but for whatever reason, Tammy has said numerous times that she has felt a lot of confidence in that relationship. So
she's
I don't
the
know
only
if
one.
she's seeing something that the rest of us aren't seeing, or if she's just lying to herself.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, not overly surprised. Like, that's what the show is, and
Yeah.
we haven't really seen that connection with them. So it's like, I feel bad for her, I guess, more in the sense of just like, oh well, didn't work out again.
Well, tell
But
me.
I don't have the same kind of like salt that Aaron does, where it's like, well, you left me for Thomas, so now he's leaving you. Haha.
Mhm. Yeah, so Tammy says there's no shot for me, and I think that's right. I think that Thomas and Becca probably end up having more chemistry and dating, or at least in the foreseeable immediate future. I think Becca and Thomas end up being more of a thing than Thomas and Tammy will be. I think Thomas and Tammy will probably end up being done, personally.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to go that way. If you look
Mm-hmm.
at our confidence intervals too on Tammy and Thomas, I had a 2 and you had a 4 for a combined 3.
Yeah, they were in the bottom half for sure.
Like
Just barely. Actually, a
never
3 may have
really
been in the top half.
thought it was gonna work out.
Yeah.
But I guess like on this date, Thomas is talking up being into Becca. Do you think he's genuine, or is he just playing her like it seems like he played Tammy?
I don't know. I mean, like, he doesn't really seem like. I think Aaron hates him so much that it's hard to like really figure out how genuine Thomas is as a person. Um, I think I saw like a connection between Becca and Thomas, and so I don't know. It's hard for me to ascertain how long, like, whether they're actually interested in each other, but I don't think that his rose will go to anybody but Becca at this point. I think that Thomas's rose is going to end up going to Becca.
Yeah, I think at the very least Thomas knows how to play the game and knows that this would be a sure thing for as long as he just sits back.
Yep.
But I don't know. I feel like Becca actually is genuinely interested, especially given the fact that she was like willing to go and like talk to Tammy about like breaking up that relationship to step in when there were 2 other men that she
could have reasonably
could have gone and talked to where
Yeah.
it would be a lot less dramatic.
Yep. Agreed.
So with those actions and then just like how she looked on the date, it seemed like she was into him.
Mm-hmm.
I think yeah, she's definitely on board. I'm just I'm not sold on Thomas, and yeah, part of it is the reputation. However just or unjust it is, like it's taken into consideration.
Here, you're joining the mob.
I mean,
you're one of Aaron's minions.
He did kind of just do it to Tammy too, so it's like, I don't know. I'm not sold. I need to see more. I'll have the week to stew on it before we get to the rose ceremony and do our confidence intervals.
I just think that if Tammy really wanted Thomas, that she should have said, I want you to commit to me and I want to commit to you, and that this would have never been a problem, instead of approaching it like, I don't want you to feel obligated to date me. I think that ultimately is probably what sparked this whole thing. I think it plays out very differently if, for whatever reason, they had like a conversation where they committed to each other more so. I think he would have done it.
I disagree. I don't think he would have been willing to. I think it would have resulted in him being like, oh, well, maybe he says he is, but would still be willing to, like, ditch out. But I think more likely he would have just been like, oh, well, we've had fun, but I'm not ready to lock down. Like
you're kind of giving the guy a free pass then, if that's the case. If you don't at least try to have that conversation.
I don't know with what I've seen out of Tammy here on the beach that she's going to have the backbone to, like, stand up and fight for it and say, well, okay, if you aren't interested right now, then we're done. Like, I think she would have sat by and be like, okay, well, yeah, let's just continue exploring our relationship, and I'll let you have the freedom to go explore with other people.
Yep. So, and
I mean, I think overall, Tammy, like, also brought up this thing we talked about earlier, where she has the mindset of, if he wants to be with me, he'll choose me.
yeah.
Like,
So
I
make him
think
choose.
overall that is the right mindset, but you also need to, as you said, state how you feel. You can't just leave that all up to the other person
Yeah.
to make the entirety of the decision.
Yeah, I mean, she's not choosing him. I think all of the words that she's given him are saying that I'm not choosing you because I don't want to feel obligated to date you, and you shouldn't feel obligated to date me. If you use language like that, the assumption is I have not chosen you. And I cannot honestly say that that wouldn't take, like, it ends up being the same situation as Kenny and Mari were in, where it's like, okay, well, if you're not committed to me, then we're done because I was committed to you. And they neither of them seem committed to each other, honestly, between Tammy and Thomas. If they wanted to, like I said, there should have been a conversation before them at some point where they just talk this out some more. It's, if you don't commit, then you're stuck, right?
Right.
I don't fault Thomas at all for going on a date with Becca. Whether he's a sleazeball like Chris or whatever, I think we've seen enough of Thomas to know that maybe he's not the most genuine in some situations, but I mean, we'll see. So, we'll see. I like Becca. She seems fun. I hope she doesn't get hurt in the process. How about that?
I can agree with that statement.
Okay. So, let's move on to the meat, the penultimate portion of the episode. I wrote down Chris versus everyone. So, Chris and Alana get down to the beach and go to the bar, and Joe, Riley, and Jasenia pull Chris over, and I will just say berate him nonstop until it's like, I don't even know. Talk me through what you witnessed on the television between that conversation, if you can call it that.
Whew. Oh man, they just like they came in throwing haymakers,
Yep.
and honestly, I was a little uncomfortable with the fact that Jasenia was there too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like maybe that's something you try to have separate, because I think with whatever defense Chris might have had,
How is he supposed
um,
to get a word in edgewise there?
yeah,
I mean, that's. I think Chris.
it was a full frontal assault. He was kind of just pinned.
Yeah, and I don't like what I saw out of Chris this episode at all. I want to be clear when I say that. But at the same time, it's like, I didn't like the mob mentality either, where it's like, well, we're just going to attack you until you're willing to leave the show. You know, like, that's just kind of how I
Right.
felt about that, where it's hard to, you know, you guys are literally like just a group of people saying, you're a bad person, you did
Oh yeah,
something
they had their
shitty.
pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, you know, and you should leave. Like, why are you here? So, yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't
I
like
don't think it was
that.
handled in the best way, but I felt overall the message was, yeah, and again, have it away, I think, from Jasenia, and like, hey, we felt like you were really shitty to her. Um, tell me if I'm wrong about this being the case, but the optics are that you came here already with somebody that you're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for them to show up too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't
Um,
like, too, that Alana at some point chimed in and was like, does anybody care what I have to say? And they're like, no, leave. Like, they don't know her. They never, they, like, I don't know. Did she get to say anything? I know nothing about this girl. And they're just like, no, we don't care anything about what you have to say about the situation.
yeah.
Like, bye. And so, I felt I felt like the message, like you said, that Joe and Riley had for Chris and that Jasenia had for Chris was not unjustified by any means. I think that they, in a sense, were right. I just did not like how they handled the situation. It was hard for me to watch this like mob of people literally like, well, we're gonna treat you like shit until you leave. Essentially, is kind of what I got out of that. I'm like, so
Yeah, and I mean,
I didn't love it.
like, at least give the man an opportunity to defend himself.
Well,
Like,
how could you
if
defend
if
yourself in
it's
that
a shit
situation
answer,
too?
whatever.
Yeah.
But just be like, okay, like, yeah, I get it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, he didn't really get even the chance to get a word in. So it's like, oh well, guess that's the end of that. And
Yeah.
once again, I was like, you know, all this outrage for Chris and Alana that they were showing
Yes.
around the beach. I'm like, what does everybody not know about Brendan and Piper
Oh, I know.
do? Because I'm just like, it seems like there's a pretty strong correlation between the two situations there.
Oh, they're
But for
upset.
whatever reason, the reactions
They're upset.
completely different.
Yep, they're upset that Chris was talking about followers to them, and they're upset that Chris seems to be concerned about popularity, and they're upset that Chris came in essentially in what seems to be a pre-existing relationship to Paradise. And I'll tell you now, Josh, I feel like what Brendan and Piper did to Natasha is infinitely worse than what, well, I won't say infinitely, was probably worse than what Chris and Alana did to Jasenia. I think what Chris making out with Alana in front of Jasenia at that party was super messed up. But at least, I mean, the only redeeming quality I have to say here is that he did not, like, speak down to her at any point in time. He, like, what Brendan said
I mean, as far as we could tell, he wasn't just straight up
mean.
lying to her. Yeah,
I don't know.
mean.
I don't like the Chris Alana situation at all. But Brendan, like, told Natasha that she had selective hearing. He told her that he like everything he said was either a lie or some way to demean what she said or make her seem like she was in the wrong. It was very much so like the gaslighting. And
yeah, no. Brendan was way more manipulative than
oh yeah,
what we saw out of Chris. Chris was just straight up being a dick.
yeah.
But you know,
Well, Natasha says this is triggering. This sounds very familiar. You know, like Natasha's like, oh my god, like all these people are coming to bat for Jasenia, but I mean, let's not forget what happened to me here. So, yeah, but
ironically, I'm not sure if you noticed this or not. Chris is talking about his relationships with Jasenia and Alana, and I guess kind of in a form of poetic justice, maybe not the kind people want to see. He mentions that Jasenia works for him because they have a spark. Or I'm sorry, Alana works for him because they have a spark. And she doesn't necessarily check all the boxes yet. Or like waiting to find out if she checks the boxes. But knew that Jasenia did. And I'm like, huh.
That sounds familiar too.
Heard this one before. Not saying Jasenia deserved it by any stretch of the imagination, but just to kind of have that line thrown back. You know, Ivan can maybe sit back there and be like, yeah.
Justified.
Doesn't feel nice, does it?
And so, just to kind of like, after that migraine-inducing conversation that we watched on TV, Chris and Alana get to talk for a little bit, and he pretty much just says, I think I'm leaving, and I want you to come with me. And she responds with, I haven't even been here for 24 hours, and leaving essentially means that I would be leaving in a committed relationship with you. And I'm not I don't think I'm there yet. And
which is insane.
Yeah.
Just how everything played out.
So Chris packs his bags and he leaves. And
and like to me it really stuck out, like that blank look on his face where he kind of shut down with all the regret when Alana says that. It's like, damn, she was she was actually almost maybe playing him more than
maybe
he thought.
Yeah.
I think he thought, okay, well, we'll go there and it'll be good. We'll get a lot of clout and stuff, and we get along together. But it's almost seeming to me like maybe Alana was actually more just there for the clout and being like, yeah, okay, if we're a power couple and that works out, cool. If not, I made a name for myself and I'll be single and then I'll work from there.
Yeah, so
It didn't seem to me like that was a thought on Chris's mind where he's like, yeah,
well,
there might not be a relationship, but at least I gained the followers. It's just, yeah, like, got the relationship, got the popularity, win-win.
yeah, and so Alana leaves too, and we get an excellent scene where Chris tries to get in the car, and she's like, "Chris, this is my car," and it's very awkward, and I think that's saying that Chris and Alana are probably not going to work out in the end either, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, that was the engraving on the headstone there. If there was any shot that they were gonna work things out afterwards, I think it's all just fell apart with that.
Oh, it's very done. I think that Chris maybe had something with Jasenia and he burned it to the ground, and the Alana situation was not helpful. But yeah, part of me feels bad for Alana because it's like she has all these people that hate her, and I mean, she really didn't do anything. I mean, she probably was there for clout. I think that was based on the conversation she had. Maybe she wasn't as into Chris as he was into her, but it also seems that ultimately she just kind of was not going to have a good time there. Like, why would you stay, right? Like, none of these people like you, and you really...
Well, and, like, the next day's the rose ceremony, too, with the men having the roses.
Yep.
So it's like...
It's not going to last.
Stick around, I guess, and be a pariah for 24 hours, enjoy the sun and the beach and the drinks, but that's all you're really getting out of it at that point.
Yeah, but is it worth it if you're around people that are just going to treat you like shit, too?
No.
Yeah.
And
like I said,
I'm sure she wasn't in a great mood from sitting through quarantine, whatever, to get in. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't like the way the whole situation was handled. Do I disagree with the sentiment of it? No. Like, I think Chris was very sleazy with the actions that he showed. But, I mean, it wasn't pretty. So they're gone. I'm not going to miss them. See you later. See you never. And...
Yeah, I didn't like Chris when he walked in with Chasen, in part because of the association, but, I didn't remember him from his season, but it just seemed very douchey immediately, so I was not gonna be a fan.
Not about it.
And he took Jasenia from my boy Ivan, so I don't have a problem with this.
Okay. So they leave, like I said, goodbye, and we get kind of the cliffhanger for next episode, which let's talk about, because all I wrote down was Natasha like, wow, I'm living in, like, deja vu. I cannot believe that these people have such a problem with this when I feel like Brendan and Piper did the same thing to me. And like I said, I still feel like Brendan and Piper were worse than Chris and Alana. But, so I wrote down
you get
preach.
A Demi spitting facts,
too.
Oh,
yeah, here.
Where, when Demi's being a reasonable one about the situation.
Let's see. Natasha, preach. Demi, preach. I just wrote down, I couldn't believe, I was like, yes. I mean, Demi has, like, moments where I feel like she's, like, very self-aware and, like, is fun to watch on the television, and then she has moments where I'm like, I can't handle this right now. This is just too much drama and too out of touch with, I feel like, what the real situation is. So, yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see the fallout now between Brendan and Piper and everybody. And we even get a clip of them talking about how Chris's intentions weren't pure when he came to the beach. Brendan and Piper, and I was like, oh, that's cute. I was like, oh, tell me more about how you didn't do the exact same thing. So.
Right.
Yeah.
There were some very awkward moments with Brendan, like, trying to give his take on it, where he was very clearly sweating down his back.
Yeah. Ha ha ha.
Who would do something like that?
Yeah. Let's not be too sus here, all right? Yeah, so ultimately I hope that, and I don't think they are going to get off the hook here, but I was worried that they would, that Brendan and Piper would just kind of coast from then on out. So I'm interested to see what happens next episode. Josh, let's circle back and kind of end the show with talking about who is still available and where might their roses go at this point, right?
Yeah.
So who did you write down as somebody that is available?
So again, for the men, I think we just have Ivan and James, right?
Yep.
Because I
Aaron.
think we compare every other man with someone else, and then we now have a handful of women who are sitting there.
Yeah, Aaron too, to a certain extent, I feel like is single still.
Yes, overall, but I think his rose is locked down for this week at least. So yeah, I'm wondering again, as I mentioned before, is Ivan gonna just give his rose back to Deandra?
I don't know.
Like, they exchanged last time, but I haven't seen Ivan really talking to anybody who's single.
No, I haven't either.
I see Ivan around, really, he's kind of hanging out with other couples and stuff.
Yeah.
Other possibility to throw out, maybe Jasenia tries to talk to Ivan again.
We'll see.
I know that's more of a stretch. I'm not how sure even Ivan would be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Receptive to that.
I don't think I would be if I were him. Would you?
No, and I, as a friend, I'd probably tell him not to.
Mm-hmm.
But they did have what seemed like a decent connection to start there. And, I mean, Jasenia was mentioning that he checked boxes, so she might at least shoot her shot. Otherwise, I can't imagine Jasenia's sticking around.
Yeah.
We got James. Does James make a move on her? Is
I
his
don't
rose
know.
just going back to Demi, even though Demi clearly has no intention of talking to James?
Yeah. I don't know. Because there are a lot of women that I feel like are available on the beach right now, right?
There are a lot of women right now.
Because I think it's like, certainly Kendall and Tia are single and available. Tammy, Jasenia, Becca to a certain extent, Chelsea to a certain extent. And the question marks in my mind of where the men's roses are going to go are coming from Aaron, Ivan, and James, like you said. I think I'm less certain of Aaron than you are, but I don't know. I really don't know who James is going to get. Oh, Demi. I left out Demi.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know who James is going to give his rose to at all. Haven't a clue. And I don't really know who Ivan's going to give his rose to. Oh, and Deandra is also available. So that's that's like 7 or 8 of the girls that I feel like are very single and may or may not get a rose, with only like a couple of guys. I'm wondering if they'll do something at last minute where they add a guy again right before the rose ceremony.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because there's not too much of a potential mix-up or anything. It's pretty set here with just the loose pieces being Aaron, Thomas, Tammy, and whoever Aaron was with before. I don't remember.
So here's what I'll say, and here are going to be my predictions.
Oh, he got his from Becca.
Yeah. So I think that I don't think Aaron's going to give his rose to Chelsea, actually.
Okay.
I don't know who he's going to give it to, but I don't think it's going to be Chelsea. And I don't foresee Ivan or James giving the rose to Tammy in any sort of capacity, so I think Tammy's leaving.
I agree with you there.
I think that I'm going to say Ivan gives his rose to Jasenia. I think I talked myself into it. I had talked myself out of it, but I think I'm talking myself back into it.
You were shutting me down so
I
hard.
was.
when
I was like,
suggested that it was
absolutely
a
not.
possibility.
I changed my mind almost immediately. All right, so we'll do that. I'm gonna say Ivan gives his rose to Jasenia. James, I don't have any fucking clue at all. Oh gosh,
So
I don't know
that
who Aaron's
sends
gonna give his to.
Deandra, Demi, Tammy, Kendall.
I mean, it
And
sends home
Chelsea.
everybody, right? Like, who are Aaron and James gonna give their rose to? I really have no idea.
I think Ivan's gonna give his back to Deandra, and I think James is gonna give his rose to Jasenia. I think he's gonna shoot a shot. Maybe considered more of a friend rose for now. But he might be preying on some emotional vulnerability here.
I feel like James is somebody that he may as well. He has had absolutely no connections from anybody from the get-go, and I am shocked he is still there.
Yeah, it's
Like-
really bizarre. He's kind of just managed to float by without really participating in the show.
I know. He's had zero participation in the show. I mean, outside of the Victoria Paul situation, and she left. So, but I don't know. We'll see. I can't even give you a prediction at this point. Maybe Tia. Maybe James gives his rose to Tia. I have no idea
maybe
why.
Kendall?
Maybe Kendall.
Like, it's
Yeah. He's not close with Joe. Why
fucking
not?
knows?
Yeah, we're guessing at this point. We'll see. I mean, I think a lot of it's going to come down to the last minute. Like, he'll have a conversation with everybody and be like, well, I enjoyed this conversation the most, so may as well try it. But we'll see. The fact that James is still on the show is bewildering. But
yeah, whoever he gives his rose to, I do not have promise going into the next week.
Nope.
For him.
not at all. But, all right. Well, I mean, Josh, and that was the show. Was it not?
It was not.
It was not?
You are missing this very important scene at the credits.
Oh, with the foot? With the feet stuff?
Yeah, personally made me uncomfortable. But and the producers just like had so many men's crazy fetish dreams there.
I don't
Where
like that.
you see Tammy and Kendall talking about each other, or talking with each other about their feet, like holding feet hands.
Well,
Oh man,
there's a
it
scene.
was bizarre.
There's a scene in the next episode too where Marissa is like licking whipped cream off of Riley's big toe,
That's right.
and I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want to see this. I don't want to knock somebody else's like kink or whatever. Like, I don't want to kink shame, but I did not feel like I personally needed the feet scenes at the end. So
So did you hear? I can't remember if it was Tammy or Kendall, but they briefly brought up Wiki Feet.
Kendall
Have you
mentioned
heard of
it.
this?
Yeah, I know what it
Kendall
is. I
Okay.
yeah. So it's like you can go on and look at celebrities' feet pics or whatever, and I'm like, what? I was like,
It's like a whole catalog of
there's-
any celebrity you could ever imagine.
there's
And
some.
they just pull images from all over the place. I discovered it this summer because a podcast I was listening to was talking about it.
Sure, a podcast, Josh. Got it.
Yeah.
No, I was
Um,
not. I was not a
I was
fan of what I witnessed in the
disturbed with
credits.
its existence. It's incredibly creepy because it's like they
How
will
did you get these
find any
photos?
instance of these. Well, it's like if somebody's foot shows up in a quick shot on camera, they've gone
Weird.
and like clipped it and
That's
caught it.
oh,
It's like, oh my goodness.
the internet. The internet is a weird,
Yikes.
dark, and scary place. So,
That it is. So on that note.
so
I
on
think
that
we've
note.
covered everything now.
So on that note, Josh and I will be saying goodbye to you fine folks. As always, I was the Han Factor. He was the Tasty Kebab. Josh, do you have anything to say to the audience before we sign off?
Have a good night, guys. I'm not waving to you with my hand. I'm waving to you with my foot tonight.
I didn't like that. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. I'm the Han Factor. If you like the channel or like the content, please like, subscribe, follow. I'd appreciate it. But bye now.